Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further, let's go. Now let's get into today's stories to find out what happened. She and I have been together for over 10 years, but we have been married for 7. We met while we were in high school, and we had been together ever since. She was the only woman that I'd ever been with, and I thought that I was the only man she'd ever been with. We've had a good life together. We have raised 3 children, we own our own home, and we even have a vacation home in Florida that we go to every summer. It was almost like we were living the American dream. As we've gotten older, and as we've been focused on work and the kids, our intimate life has sort of diminished. It wasn't completely inactive, but it wasn't as vibrant as either of us probably hoped it could be. She was always exhausted after taking care of the kids, and after long days in the office, I was also tired. I started to notice that she was acting off. She had never been someone to care a lot about her physical appearance. I thought she was naturally beautiful, and I loved everything about her. She didn't have to wear makeup around me. She didn't have to dress nicely. I thought she was stunning with a clean face and sweatpants. However, she started going to the gym. She was petite, and after 3 kids she had more curves, and I guess she wanted to try to lose that weight. I cannot stress enough that I never encouraged her to go. She was my wife, and I loved her. The changes in her body were from carrying her children inside of her. I didn't mind them. On top of that, she was dressing up more. She was wearing nice dresses and newer clothes. It reminded me of what she wore when we first started dating. I asked her about it, and she just told me that it was to help her feel more confident in herself. I took that explanation to heart. She had never done anything to make me think otherwise, so I assumed she just needed a little boost. A few weeks after we had that conversation, I noticed that she was very secretive with her phone. I had read way too many other Reddit stories to feel comfortable with knowing how sketchy she was being with her children. Her phone, so thinking we had a good communication line between us, I asked her about it. She told me that I was overreacting, and that she wasn't doing anything on her phone. I didn't want to ask her to see it, because I didn't want to cause an argument about not trusting her. She unlocked it and handed it to me, but I thought that was enough, so I just shook my head and apologized. One night, she told me that she was going to a book club that a local bookstore was hosting and left. I thought that she might be gone for maybe 2 hours. She didn't come back until 4 hours later. When I asked her where she was, she just told me she got some drinks with a couple of the girls after. Out of curiosity, I checked the bookstore's website and found out that they didn't have a book club meeting on the calendar. I'd had enough of her lies, so I figured if she wasn't going to tell me the truth, I would find it. My gut was telling me there was something wrong. I looked online and found a private investigator who I reached out to via email. And they agreed to take on my case. About a week later, she came back to me with the exact same story about the book club. I emailed the investigator and told him right away about the chance to catch her, so he jumped on the opportunity to see what she was doing. I stayed home, anxiously awaiting any news from the investigator. My wife came home over 4 hours later. Not long after, I got a phone call from the investigator, so I excused myself and took the call outside. He told me that he followed my wife to a house where a man greeted her, kissing her on the lips when he did, and they both stayed inside for several hours. He was able to look up the owner of the house and he had a name. Furthermore, when he did a search for the man online, he was able to find pictures he posted on a kink forum. The more he looked into his followers, people reacting to his posts, and she found a profile that belonged to my wife. I was completely shocked and heartbroken. On top of that, I was alarmed at how she would meet some random man off the internet and ruin our marriage by being with him. I needed to see what was going on between them exactly, so I waited for my wife to go to sleep, and I logged into her computer to try and get into the account. As luck would have it, she was logged in already, so I didn't have to do much hacking. I didn't know if the man she had gone to sleep with was the only one, but there were many other explicit message chains between her and strange men. I gathered screenshots of the most explicit parts, especially the parts where she had been sending pictures of herself to these men. There was no chance of reconciliation after this. She had thrown away our marriage for some meaningless flame. It was unforgivable. We had a family reunion coming up in a couple of weeks, so I thought that would be the best time to tell her about the news. If she was going to throw away our marriage, I was going to make sure she would regret it. The weeks passed, and I was just staying late at night at work and trying to avoid her as much as possible. It was hard to look at her knowing she had some of the conversations she did with those men. I had the divorce papers ready by the time the family reunion came around. All of the kids were playing in the pool or by the playset, while the adults sat around the table and had a few drinks and ate some barbecue. I stood up, asking for everyone's attention, and I turned to my wife and told her I was leaving her. There was a gasp from the crowd, and I handed her the papers that I brought with me. I explained to her and everybody else watching that I found the messages she was exchanging online, and I had reason to believe that she had cheated on me with one of those men. She dragged me away from the table and was fuming because of how humiliated she was. She tried to explain to me that she had never cheated on me, and that the messages were just for her curiosity about certain things. She swore up and down she never acted on anything. But then when I brought up her kissing another man at their house, she was silent. We went through filing for the divorce, and she didn't ask for anything from me. If she had, she wouldn't have been awarded it because she was the one who cheated. The divorce was entirely her fault. She ended up moving in with her grandma and helping her dad around. We have joint custody of the kids, but they tend to want to spend more time with me. My private investigator was able to do some digging on the man as well. As it turned out, he was married and had several children of his own. I considered not getting involved, but it was the right thing to do. I found his wife and I showed her some of the evidence of their affair, and she ended up leaving him. She kept the house, she kept the kids, and she's getting spousal support from him. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get back into the dating scene. I've only dated one woman, and it ended pretty badly. Now let's get into the second story. My wife and I met in college, both young and full of dreams. Sparks flew instantly, and before we knew it, we were inseparable. Fast forward a bit, and we've been together for a solid 12 years. We have 2 beautiful kids, a cozy home we call our own, and a bond that seemed unbreakable. My wife has always been a bit of a health man. She is very passionate about clean living, she eats a plant-based lifestyle, she works out religiously, and she enforces a lot of these rules on our children so they can be healthy. I wasn't like that at all before we met. In fact, I grew up very poor in a food desert in America, so I wasn't used to eating organic fresh foods like she was. When we got together, I made some adjustments to my lifestyle, but there was a bit of compromise between us, because I am unable to have a completely plant-based diet for my own health reasons. I work a mostly sedentary job in an office, though I do try to go for long walks or jog when I can. My wife, however, works as a personal trainer and nutritionist. She works at a gym near us that offers a lot of specialty classes for the members. She had been there for years. She was almost a staple of the gym to a lot of the older clients. I never had a reason to worry about what she was doing at work before. My wife was hot. I knew a lot of guys that came there to work out were probably hitting on her, but I trusted her. One day, she came home from work exhausted and annoyed. I asked about what was bothering her, and she told me that they hired a new trainer that was completely inept at their job. On top of her normal classes, they were having her train him on how to train others. It just seemed redundant, and she was pretty annoyed that they just didn't hire somebody who was capable. The first few days that she was training this new hire, she would come home and complain about how annoying he was, and how it seemed like he wasn't actually paying attention to her while she was training him. But sooner or later that complaining stopped. I didn't necessarily notice it at first, she just stopped talking about him. A few weeks after he started, we were at dinner, and I asked her how it was going with him. She seemed surprised that I asked, but she just shrugged it off and said that he's teaching his own class now, and sometimes she has to sit in on them to make sure he's up to par. It seemed like she started acting off just out of the blue. She was spending more time at the gym, she was wearing skimpier clothes out, and she was being distant and secretive. I had a feeling that there was something wrong between us, but I didn't know how to ask. As time went on, I only noticed things getting worse. So I bit the bullet, and I just outright asked her if there was something going on that I didn't know about. She laughed at me, and told me that I was being silly for thinking something was happening. She loved me, and she wouldn't hurt me. It felt good to hear that reassurance when I had been somewhat insecure about our relationship in the weeks prior. For a few days, things were different, and it felt like she was being more aware of how she was acting around me. But then things just reverted back to how they were. I got really concerned when she told me that she was going to be teaching some evening classes at the gym. Ever since we had the kids, we had both been firm with our jobs about how we wouldn't be working anymore. Nights because we wanted to spend time with our family. We actually ended up having a huge argument about that because I felt like she had made a huge decision without me, but she told me that it was only going to be for a few months and it wasn't every night. So I just accepted it. She had been teaching that class for about 2 weeks. One night after she had made dinner, I noticed that she left her phone behind before she left. I told my oldest child to keep a close eye on the younger one so I could quickly run it over to the gym so she wouldn't be without it. When I got there, it was practically empty. There were a few other members on the machinery, but it was clear that there was no class taking place. As I said, my wife had been working there for 12 years, so I knew the workers pretty well. I explained to the front desk worker that I had my wife's phone, but they told me that she wasn't there. That seemed strange. She told me she had a class, so I believed she was there. They told me that they could have been wrong. But they hadn't seen her all night. They gave me the go-ahead to go look through the employee section. I walked back and made my way through the maze of lockers to find the offices and break room. I didn't see her anywhere there. It was clear to me then that she had lied to me about going to the gym. All of the feelings and worries had come back and I didn't know what to do. Then it hit me, I was holding her phone in my hands. I hadn't even thought about going through, but it was clear to me that I needed to. I looked through it and I found videos, pictures, and explicit details about her affair with the new trainer. I was absolutely shocked by what I'd seen. I had my suspicions, but confirming them felt like I was being stabbed in the chest. When I finally got back to my senses, I screenshotted a bunch of the messages and sent them to myself before deleting them from her phone. The closer I looked at some of the pictures, I could see that they had been sleeping together at the gym. My wife loved her job almost as much as she loved our kids. It truly meant the world to her. She had taken my happiness away, so I was going to take it for her too. I knew her boss, so I contacted him and told him about what I discovered. When I told him they had been sleeping together at the gym, he was disgusted. He was shocked that his employees would do something like that. I know it was a hasty decision to tell her boss before I even told her, but it was the right thing to do. I went back home and went to bed, intending to ignore my wife completely. The next day I got home from work and my wife was there completely distraught. She told me that she was let go from work. She told me she had no idea why, but I had a strong suspicion that if her boss fired her, they would have told her exactly why. She was clearly still trying to lie to me. I took that as an opportunity to elaborate on her recent termination. I told her all about what I had discovered and how I called her boss to tell him that they had been having a hard time having intimate at the job. She was shocked that I knew, but all I did was tell her that it was over between us. She begged me not to go through with that. She didn't have a job to support herself or the kids, and she didn't want to be without me. I told her that I'd made up my mind, and that she wouldn't have to worry about supporting the kids because I was going to try to get custody of them. We ended up going through with the divorce. Both she and the trainer were fired from their job and forced to work elsewhere, because my wife was fired for sleeping with somebody else on the job. It was difficult for her to use the only employment she had for the past 12 years on her resume. So it was difficult for her to land another one. Eventually she did, but it paid about a third of what she was making before. I got full custody of the kids, and she has a dissertation of them every weekend, and she gets them on some holidays. She's living with her mom and stepdad now, while she tries to figure out a way to save money for her own place.